Now we hear a perspective that explores the bridge between indigenous healing, public health, and psychedelic policy. Marlena Robbins is Dene and is a Doctor of Public Health candidate at UC Berkeley, specializing in tribal governance, psychedelic policy, and mental health. Her research explores culturally informed models of care integrating indigenous healing with modern approaches to psilocybin therapy. Marlena collaborates with tribal leaders, health organizations, and policymakers across the Southwest to advance ethical, community-driven psychedelic practices. Marlena, we're honored to hear your perspective on multi-generational urban native perspectives on psilocybin. Please join us at the podium.
Thank you. Some powerful women on this stage. Yeah, it's A. Marlena Robbins, Inisha, Ya Idina Tachi Nishle, Todachini Bashishin, Totokoshu Dashiche, Tabahan Dashinale. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for being open to this conversation. I'm Dene. I'm Navajo. I grew up in Window Rock, Arizona, on the Navajo reservation, and I am here to talk about mushrooms. And actually, so we grew up in Window Rock on the reservation, and then we moved to Albuquerque when I was in 6th grade so that my mom, who's here today, could... Hi, Mom. So my mom could go back to school. And then I went to Santa Fe Indian School, which is right down the street. Has anyone been? Yeah? Good. Any tribes? Any tribe? There you go. There you are. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And being actually in boarding school was where I got one of my nicknames, which is Shrooms. And I won't tell the story of how I got that nickname because my mom is here. But I'll just say it was fun. Boarding school was fun. And so New Mexico has a very special place in my heart. This is where I found sobriety. I remember going to gatherings in 2014. April 27th, 2014 was my sober date. And thank you. And I woke up the night after gatherings. I said, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to close this chapter. I was already really questioning my relationship with alcohol. What was it doing for my child? What was it doing for my body, for my relationship with my family? How was it affecting me as a daughter? And there were no good answers that could come from alcohol. And thinking about the spirit of alcohol, we talk about spirit of the mushrooms, spirit of these different plant medicines. Alcohol has a spirit. And at one point in time, alcohol was used to celebrate. It was used during festivals and celebrations, during harvest. We have pulque, we have Apache corn beer. And then over time, that spirit got manipulated. That recipe got changed up and commercialized and exploited, and it became angry. And so the way it was taught to me was when we take alcohol into our bodies, it attaches itself to us, and it starts attracting anger and loss and grief and debt and frustration. And that clicked for me because I was trying to understand myself. I was trying to understand addiction within my family. My dad, he left the reservation when I was very young, and he found sobriety in Prescott at the VA. And he advocated for sobriety within his family, within my sisters. My mom found sobriety. And so that cleared my mind enough to be able to grow again, to be a good mom. Becoming a mother and really trying to understand this trauma, so that trauma that's there around my family, where did it come from? Where did it start? We talk about the lineages of colonization, of boarding school trauma, of displacement, of the Navajo Long Walk. All of that gets passed down generation to generation, and it shows up when we don't acknowledge it. It shows up in addiction, in these external remedies or things that we need to combat it, to null it, or to silence it. And so really trying not to pass this trauma on to my child. And mushrooms came in, and I started learning about them, learning about beautiful, powerful women like Maria Sabina and how she sat with the mushrooms, and trying to build a space within my home to do that. And so I was able to sit with my mom and had a profound and changed the entire trajectory of my life. I would not be on this stage without the mushrooms. Absolutely not. And so I got to talk to my dad about them. And it's interesting now because the DEA just petitioned HHS to start looking at rescheduling psilocybin from Schedule 1 to Schedule 2 for palliative care patients and for veterans experiencing PTSD. And my father was a Vietnam War veteran, and he passed from cancer in 2019. No, I'm sorry, 2021, I'm sorry. And I was able to talk to him about end-of-life psilocybin-assisted therapy. And I was like, Dad, we have these options here. Are you interested? And there was an interesting spectrum that came up of experience and perspectives of mushrooms within my family. So experiencing them in a spiritual context, experiencing them in a recreational context, and then experiencing them conservatively. So no, they're drugs. They'll make you go crazy. It's the vilification from the war on drugs era, 1970s, and Nixon's war on drugs. And so he grew up with that vilification, and he was open in the conversation. We didn't do it, but it was the fact that he had it as an option, because a lot of his family members passed from different cancers later on in life after long-term exposure from uranium mining radiation on the Navajo reservation. And so it's that really drove me into the field of public health and trying to understand these different layers of perspectives when it comes to talking about psilocybin mushrooms. So I did a study. I was able to do a study on multigenerational perspectives of psilocybin mushrooms in urban native communities in the North and Southwest United States. And so many different stories came out. My eldest participant was 80 years old, and then my youngest was 18. And so within that, just a huge, diverse range of experiences, perspectives from, you see, for example, the elder participants talked about taking mushrooms before they went into ceremony. Nobody else took mushrooms, but he took them before he went in, and he said that the songs came through clearer, the language, the prayers came through differently. That was his own experimentation, but there was also another woman who grew up in the foster care system, and she experienced homelessness. And so they would take the mushrooms to forget that they were homeless, to forget that they were cold or hungry, and so it became a survival mechanism. There were other participants who talked about going to raves and mixing them with other substances like alcohol. I think there's one called hippie flipping. Yeah, okay. See, I hear good things. And there were, my youngest participant actually got to go to Oaxaca, and they talked about being in the pandemic and having that self-isolation and that self-care time to sit with their traumas and try to understand their own family lineages and where that history came into what they were experiencing, their own trauma. And so they got to sit in ceremony. And so we see this, again, this huge spectrum of experience and of perspective. And I can't emphasize that enough, because there's all of these experiences are valid, all of these answers are valid. And so fast forward to my dissertation, and what I'm proposing now is, and something that I'm seeing in the psychedelic space, is where are our tribal nations? Where are our tribal leaders? I went to MAPS in Denver in June, and I actually saw the Navajo Nation president. And for me, growing up on the reservation, the Navajo Nation president is, we hold them to a certain pedigree, we hold them on a certain pedestal because they represent our value systems, they represent us as a people. And so it was just nice to see a tribal leader in the building, in the space, and curious. And so my dissertation really looks at, because the Navajo Nation is centered between New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona, and all of these states are passing some sort of psilocybin legislation, whether it's clinical research, task forces, tribal advisory working groups, and then here in New Mexico. How is that impacting tribal government systems, and how is the Navajo Nation responding to that? Do we want psilocybin-assisted therapy on the Navajo Nation? Do we not want it? Do we need more information? And if so, what type of education is that? And are we ready for it? And so it's creating a space to have those conversations and to hopefully help the tribe take a stance and say, yes, we want it, we need more information, or no, we don't want it. And those answers are valid because just because I have my own personal relationship with mushrooms, I'm one person out of a tribe of 400,000. So I don't speak for the tribe. I speak with the tribe, and I speak with my people. And I want to ask them those questions and ask them those stories. I did speak to some of the elders who were with the peyote group, and they talked about how mushrooms don't have a place in our ceremonies. They actually, the word in our language for mushrooms means the ones that make you go blind. And it's because when you step on them, which I did step on one when I was a kid, but when you step on it, the spores release and they cause vision loss. And so that's when we start talking about mushrooms with tribal members of different generations, that's what they refer back to. But at the same time, psychedelics are everywhere now. They're in social media, in books, on TikTok, and our children are being exposed to them. And I think that if we're gonna pass legislation like this, we have a responsibility to our younger generations to give them that education. Because what they're going through right now, they're gonna start looking for the medicine, they're gonna start asking for it. And they might not find it in the safest places, in the healthiest spaces. My nephew talked about how he knows about my research, but we were driving and he was like, oh, look at this. And he was on his iPhone and he put it on the private tab, which he thinks is the dark web. But he was like, I can buy acid on Google. You can buy LSD online. And I was like, what? You know, so this is the level of access that our children have. And we need to be mindful of that education that we give them. And I'll just finish with, ceremony is a technology. Ceremony, the songs, the prayers, the directions, the space. You talk about set and setting. Ceremony creates a vessel for us to go and journey into other realms. And that's why it's needed when we sit with these different medicines. Because if we go out there unprepared, something might follow us back. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into. It's almost like surgery. And if we want to equate Western science and Western medicine to indigenous science and indigenous knowledge systems, then the medicine people who guide those ceremonies are doctors. They are surgeons. They are medical. They are in there performing surgery when we go into ceremony. And I'll say this last thing. In Australia, the indigenous elders are talking about how people who go out and they do mushrooms on the beach, they're opening themselves up and they're releasing all of this trauma. It's like when you're in surgery and bodily fluids are going everywhere, blood, and it's ending up in the land, it's ending up in the water. And the medicine people can see those things. And so they're saying, when we're sitting with these medicines, be mindful of that and clean up before, during, and after, because it's going to affect things that we can't see, and it's going to start affecting us in different ways. But I just want to say, thank you for everything. Thank you for being here. New Mexico is a beautiful place, and